The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
You're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy. I am just in the midst of all kinds of technical difficulties. I am Candace Harper, Love Coach. You are here listening maybe in your TuneIn app on your smart device. It's been a crazy day, people. It's been raining all day in New York. I don't know. Ooh, and my guest is calling in right now. Hi, Timothy. Hold on one second. I'm going to intro you, but you're on, okay? Okay, everybody on Facebook Live, we're just working out some technical difficulties. I see Kevin is here. Everybody out there in the Armed Radio global world, we just do what we got to do in the new millennium. So you're maybe listening on your TuneIn app on a smart device, listening to Armed Radio, or maybe you're in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. And also, we are now available on iHeartRadio. So if you have an Alexa, you can ask for Candy. You have some way to listen to iHeart, you can ask for Candy. Maybe you're joining us live on Facebook. I see Lee. My Lee Schultz is here. I know everything's going to be okay as soon as my Lee shows up. I see Kevin is here. I know people are going to trickle in. Or maybe you are, I don't know. If you are live on Facebook, join the Creative Love Collective, join Armed Radio Group News. I'm so discombobulated today, but you know what? I'm going to release that. I'm letting go of discombobulation because we're here now. We're ready to go. Hopefully you're comfy and you're listening. So tonight we're not using the call-in number because my guest is on the call-in number. So if you did have a burning desire to ask a question or say something, you can come on Facebook Live and you can come to my actual page because I have a public broadcast going and it's, facebook.com/the Candace Harper. So just find me if you want to join us and you want to be in on everything. Okay, so like I said, I'm Candace Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation, my passion is personal growth, and my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And sometimes technology does not cooperate, but we're going to have our best possible love life anyway. And what this show is about is that each week we have lively conversations about different topics relating to love and relationships. And sometimes I'll bring on special guests like tonight. Even though you can't see him if you're on the live, you will be able to hear him. Sometimes we play games, we have activities, we get a chance to laugh or cry or just learn something new. And that is why I want everybody out there to know that this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules or rights and wrongs. We're not here to shame your love situation. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. That's what we're all about. So tonight we're continuing our ongoing series, which is almost over. We only have 2 more shows left in the summer of sexploration. And hopefully you've spent this summer just completely transforming your sexual experiences or, your whole sexual mindset, because that's what this is all about. And hopefully you've ended up with a lot of freedom and enjoyment and self-care and intimacy, all that good stuff. And the next series is going to be New Beginnings, Falling in Love. So that's going to be all about meeting someone new, things to look for in the beginning, just all that good stuff. What to do if somebody ghosts. We're going to talk about all that, getting the relationship started kind of stuff during the fall. And then we'll see what happens for the winter. Maybe by then we'll be all cozied up and partnered up. So we'll be warm. My guest tonight, I'm very, very excited to have. His name is Timothy Teach Jones, and he's an influential actor, filmmaker, preacher, and producer. He currently co-hosts the TV show Hidden Likes on PBS, and his greatest role is the father of 2 lovely teenage daughters. And he also has many other talents, but only one purpose to inspire others to maximize their potential. And I actually came across Timothy's work through his recent Facebook Live series, The Single Circle, where he offers his take on being a single dad, dating after divorce, and most interestingly, sex and spirituality, which is going to be our main topic of today. We're going to get into like the taboo discussion of like religion and sex and intercourse and intimacy and, you know, all those things that people are afraid to touch on. We're going to go there. We're going to go there, right, Timothy?
Yes, we are.
So, Timothy, I have you next to the mic right now. Go ahead and get related to the people. Tell them whatever else you might want them to know about you. You know, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, well, first of all, Candy, thank you so much for having me on your show and reaching out after you watched a couple of the Single Circle sessions. I had a great conversation with you the other day, and I knew that today's interview was going to be something special because this is a subject that has been taboo for a lot of people, unfortunately, because of culture and sometimes even a lack of understanding from our parents or their parents. So we kind of like been misinformed. I think it's time for us to have some open dialogue.
Absolutely. I totally agree about that. And, you know, Timothy and I had a really great conversation last week, and we touched on a lot of, you know, what you're talking about and a lot of other stuff too, right? So we're going to get into all of that tonight. Mm-hmm. So I prearranged some questions for you, you know, just to kind of like ease us into the topic, and then we'll just see where it flows. And those of you who are on the Facebook Live, I see Penny joined, I see Rebecca joined. You know, you guys know you can always like jump in, and if you have comments, I'll share them with Tim. Tim, are you also on the Facebook Live too?
I'm not. I can. Give me one moment because I want to see the questions as well.
Yeah, so you'll be able to talk to the people too. We're going to get Timothy in the room too. But yeah, I guess all we have to do now is to get started and to jump in. So my first question to you, Timothy Teach Jones, is what inspired you to do the Single Circle where you were broadcasting about your singlehood? Like what motivated you to do that?
Well, what motivated me is being 44 and being single. So, you know, me entering into this world, you know, I haven't dated since I was in my early 20s. I got married at 24, very young. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you know, the marriage didn't work. And me being single now, you know, and not dating this new world, it's like the game has changed, so to speak. It's almost like rotary phones compared to the internet.
Right.
So now everything is different. You know, you have all these online dating sites. People are not necessarily meeting in person anymore. And I knew that if I had needs and if I had concerns and questions that other people did too, so I decided that I wanted to reach out and just have an open conversation. I'm not an expert, but I feel like with all my life experience as well as my training, that I might be able to be helpful.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I totally agree with you. Like it's so drastically different from back in the day. I feel like I'm also dating myself a little bit. We're about the same age. And it is so drastically different from, you know, just when the internet just began and all we had was email, like, or chat rooms. I don't know if you remember chat rooms.
I do. Yeah.
Which were not the safest way to meet people. Like it wasn't necessarily the best route to go. But before they had good dating apps, it was like chat rooms, like AOL, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us, Timothy, what are some of your thoughts so far about dating after divorce? Talk about that a little bit. That experience.
I think it's interesting. And for me personally, and I think that when I share some personal things with the viewers or listeners, they'll be able to relate. I've had friends, you know, and people reach out and, you know, people want to hook you up, you know, and it's like I said, it's a different world. Yeah. And I think that for people my age, and I know that we have a lot of singles listening that are younger, some older, but for this demographic, there's a lot to consider because now you're considering dating people and they have children. Mm-hmm. So, you know, do you have standards in terms of or boundaries of how many kids you don't want to surpass or, you know, age requirements? It's just totally different from being 21 and you see somebody that's cute and they see you and they're attracted and you guys going on a date. For me, I want to be responsible. Yeah. So I'm looking at, you know, I don't want to meet children prematurely. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. And like you I had a conversation about sex a couple of days ago in preparation for this interview. I think even when that's introduced prematurely, that's going to create a problem because, it's again, that divide between intimacy and intercourse. That's very important.
Yeah. So do you feel like when, we're dating in a certain stage of life at a certain age, and when we have children, of caution that is needed sexually, excuse me, as far as like how, you said, like if we move too quickly and things like that, do you think there is a too quickly? I mean, as far as like, I don't know how intimate we can be, without involving our children, right? I don't have kids, so I don't have that same experience, but like, what has been your experience as far as like, what happens when you get sexually intimate before you involve the children and all that stuff?
Well, I think in a general sense, when it comes to people having children, I don't think anyone should meet your kids until you believe that this is someone that you could potentially spend the rest of your life with. That's just me personally. Yeah. Because kids make connections. They get connected to people emotionally. And, we think back to the 70s and 80s, and I mean, it may be kind of like a joke, but, people would refer to men as like, this is your new uncle. And they would say, hey, Uncle Paul. And you don't want to have like this revolving door of men and women coming in and out of your children's lives. So no one, will meet my children until I feel like strongly, that this could be someone I want to do life with. That's why I talked about in my single sessions the difference between a soulmate and a playmate. Yeah. So if you are looking at someone as a playmate, then they don't need to be close to your children. That could be toxic.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So here's my question: what do you think? Excuse me, it's a little humid and it's making me dry, believe it or not. What do you think is the best thing about being single at this stage in life?
That's funny. The best thing, the listeners will probably hate this answer. I hate it.
You hate it?
Yeah, man. I don't know if there's a best thing to being in your 40s and being single. Today, the best answer I can give you is you can be selective. So that is a good thing. You don't have to rush into anything. Yeah. I'm not trying to I'm not desperate, I want to just find someone to do life with at this stage. What it is, it's a partnership. Yeah. And you wouldn't just run into business and do business with someone. So, being with someone intimately and having a lifelong relationship with them, you need to be extremely selective. So I think that at this stage, the best thing about it is I can be patient. Yeah. And, kind of like, I hate to say it this way, but it's almost like doing interviews. Yeah. So, if you have a position to fill, you don't have to just interview 4 or 5 people. You need to take your time.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because that's the thing that I actually like about it is because I like meeting new people. And so the part I do like about it is hearing a lot of different people's stories. And, just kind of seeing, and it's almost like I approach it, and this might be why I'm single. I approach it in sort of an experimental way where it's like I'm learning a lot of different things about a lot of different people. And also, like you said, being selective at the same time. So they're not necessarily stories that I want to join my life with, but they're interesting to hear, right? Like, that's an interesting thing about it. Lee, who's watching, says prior to introducing a partner to children is introducing your kids to the idea that you are dating. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Lee.
Exactly.
Yeah, like making sure that they know that you're even in the field.
Yeah, because and I agree with that point, you don't want to spring something on them to where they're in shock that we didn't even know, Dad, you were out there like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So then here's my last question before we really dig in. You sort of touched on it a little bit because you said that you hate dating at this stage of life, but what is the biggest thing that you feel doesn't work about it?
What do I think doesn't work?
Yeah. So what's the thing that you feel like?
I think the mentality, there are people, and again, I'm talking my world. Yeah. There are people like in their 40s that still act like they're 20. So that is what can be dangerous. We have jobs now. Now we have responsibilities. It can't be we're going to talk till 2 o'clock at night and in the morning and we're going to say, you hang up first. No, you hang up. can't. Like, this is the world. Like, I gotta be up at 6. I can't play kissy face with you at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, it's finding that mature, arena, that maturity that you can have with someone, that can be a challenge.
Yeah.
Because you remember, think about it, Candy. When you're in college and, you have your class starts tomorrow at 10, you have some, well, I have to take my daughters to school today, and then I'm going to take pictures of them. It's their first day, and then I got to go to work, and then I got to go to this meeting. When you have, like, life responsibilities, everybody's not welcoming to that world. Everybody's not comfortable adapting to your schedule, adult responsibilities. Exactly.
Yeah. And I totally hear what you're saying, but then it's like, and maybe this is part of my immaturity. I agree with you. Like, the staying up till 6 o'clock in the morning on the phone is not conducive to actually having an adult life. I totally agree with that. However, like, I feel like there's that part that's so fun about, having a romance with someone and getting to know someone where you do get to be a little bit like starry-eyed and childish, and it's like the balance of still finding those moments of
that's the balance.
Yeah, like maybe not being irresponsible about it, but still being able to like play kissy face a little bit.
Absolutely. Let me play both sides, because I don't want to come off as just like anti. Everybody needs that. That goes back to the intimacy. Yes, we need companionship. We need friendship. Everyone needs to be with the opposite sex. So I think everything needs to be balanced. You have to find someone that you're compatible with, that you can even make. Like, for me, I don't really think I could date someone that didn't have kids. And maybe I could. I'm just thinking in theory. Yeah. Because I don't know if they could relate to my world.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because Penny, who's on the thread, hi Penny, she says, I myself, being a mother, prefer dating someone with children.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I get that.
And I understand that.
Yeah, I don't have children, but I'm responsible for a couple children, and I know that's not the same as parenting, but I can understand why someone would come from that place. Because when I am responsible, I'm often responsible for a 7-year-old, and when I am, I know that I want to like be at my best, and that I can't be distracted with other things. So, if I were with someone, they'd have to be of an understanding that I have responsibilities to not that I don't want to be distracted from, or that I want to be able to, give my best self to. So I can understand why, as a parent, that would be something that, you would look for in somebody else, someone who really gets that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Preliminary to what we're really going to delve into tonight. So part of the reason for those of you who are listening, part of the reason too that I was drawn to invite Timothy on the show is that in your single circle you were talking a little bit. I think you had done a whole section about celibacy, but also, as we were talking about last week on the phone in our pre-interview, we talked about this mixture of like Christianity and spirituality and religion, and how we can navigate our sex lives in a shame-free but responsible but healthy way, right? And actually trying to find access to that, coming from a place of being raised, maybe in a very Christian home. And we sort of talked about how we have somewhat similar backgrounds, but what are some things that we identified? I'm trying to remember that we identified, like what we were told growing up and what, like as a Christian and a man, what are some things you were told?
Don't ask me any questions.
Yes.
Don't do it. We were kind of like told that, sex was like hands off. We didn't talk about it. No one ever talked to me about sex in life. Yeah. I learned about it the hard way, which was in the street, talking to other people that were misinformed. But in terms of like growing up in a religious environment, it was more of a taboo subject. And I think that can sabotage your experiences.
Absolutely. Oh, so taboo. I mean, for us, in my family, it was all girls. There was no until you were married, and even that was just sort of like an unspoken assumption, because marriage, obviously within the bonds of religion, marriage is the only sacred and safe place that you're having sex, ideally, right? The ideology. But, and we were also, but also there was still with women, there's the pressure to still be presentable and look pretty, but don't be touched.
Right.
That was our thing.
Be appealing without being revealing.
Exactly. So there's that whole, and I feel like that's a big thing in church culture. I don't know, for those of you listening and commenting, if you guys have had any similar experiences, but in church culture, there's very much an appearance thing, looking good at church, looking good for church, and presenting yourself as very Christian, and then, being a freak in the sheets. Like that is something I feel like is very common, right?
Right, and it's something that we have to address, though, because it's unhealthy.
Yes.
And, people walk around with these masks on their face, and we feel like we can't be ourselves, because, if we make it taboo, or if it's, when my parents told me, don't eat any more cookies, it's bedtime, that made me want it more.
Right.
Now I'm sneaking.
Yeah.
And it gets dangerous after that. Now it's reckless.
Sneaking, and then also, exactly, it gets dangerous and reckless, but then there's also that shame and guilt thing that comes up.
Absolutely.
Right? Because we're taught it's wrong,
yeah.
it's wrong. So, I think the whole, point of what we want to walk away with tonight is like, how do we release this whole idea of shame and guilt, that things have to be under the cloak of night, and that there is some sort of, it's that balance between, depending on how spiritual or religious you are, being in God's favor, and also being a human who enjoys themselves and doesn't feel shamed in how they navigate their sex life, right?
Well, I heard a quote, and I'm not sure if it was Thomas Edison or one of these guys, and it said, where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. And I think that people have to truly understand the purpose of sex, because you shouldn't be walking around ashamed and scared and guilty and frustrated. What type of a life is that? I think that when sex is introduced prematurely, that's what we talked about the other day on the phone, Candy, was how sex can be introduced prematurely. It's like telling a kid you can't drive. Yeah. Without telling them, no, you need to get driver's training. Then when you turn 16, you need to get a driver's license. Yes, you can drive, but we have to teach you and train you. And a lot of us have been misinformed. And so now a lot of us, we're in our 30s and 40s and 50s, and there are people who are sexually dysfunctional because nobody ever talked to us.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's very true. And I feel like even for myself, I've only really started to look at and work on, what is sexual dysfunction and how it was affecting me, and, where I had dysfunction, just probably, like I said, in the last 10 years, just the idea of looking at it and even thinking, that there was something there to be looked at. Because I think we walk around with our conditioning without even realizing that's what we're doing. And exactly what you had brought up in our conversation last week, which I loved, was this intimacy versus intercourse thing. So I think the reason that that it should be understood, or that we talk about that there is a distinction, is because I think the reason that so many people are having intercourse and not intimacy is because when you're in your conditioning and you're so walled off because of either shame or what you were told was right and wrong and how you're supposed to be doing it, how do you allow yourself to get free enough to even get intimate with somebody because you're so busy trying to sort of, mask and protect your shame?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What do you think?
That's why I brought that up on those single sessions, the intimacy versus intercourse. I just really think that because many of us were ill-advised as younger people, some of us, like myself, we started having sex early. So now when I say sex, intercourse. Mm-hmm. And because we've been having intercourse for generations, I've been having intercourse for, 3 decades, I guess now. And it was just, I had to study and to learn intimacy. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us, a lot of people are being hurt. Hearts are being broken. One-night stands, and people thinking, one person thinks the person likes them, the other person, well, I got what I wanted, I got mine, hopefully you get yours.
Yeah.
And we keep hurting each other through selfishness, but I think that what's missing is intimacy. We're not communicating. Sex is not just intercourse.
Yeah.
It can be beautiful. I do believe in God, and I believe that God made sex. I do believe in Adam and Eve. But my point in saying that is, what if we start talking first? What if we hold hands? I know there's a lot of guys listening to me right now like, man, don't nobody want to hold nobody's hand. That's what's wrong right now. That's what's wrong with us. Why do you think the divorce rate is over 50%?
Yeah.
Because we need to start holding hands. We need to start kissing. We need to start listening.
Yeah.
We need to start laughing. We need to start, that's intimacy.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And then also, too, on top of that, in this digital age, it's like even more so, it needs to be something to be present to and actually making a point of doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, Lee.
Oh, exactly. See,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. You made a great point. I have to address that. You said this, what did you call it? What did you say about technology?
What, digital age and the digital?
Yeah. This digital age, like it's so easy not even to talk to someone for a week.
Yeah.
I can just text you. And I don't have a problem with texting. But what I'm saying is, texting is great. It's like email. It's instant.
Yeah.
But we've lost intimacy. Now, like I can be in the house with my daughters, and one of my daughters texts me, so Dad, what are we doing tonight? I'm in the room. Come in the room and talk to your daddy. but there's couples who have lost that.
Yeah.
I think we text too much. I heard a comedian say it, like we've lost a lot of chivalry and we've lost a lot of spontaneity and romance and fire and, erotic love within marriage because by the time you get home, I think it was Chris Rock, he said, by the time you get home, I know everything you did today. You took a selfie of your breakfast. You texted me that you were going to the school with the kids. You took a picture of the thong you're going to be wearing tonight. There's no more mystery.
Yeah.
I come home and see you in the thong, and I didn't know you were going to be in the thong. Like, we got to get back to the intimacy.
Yeah. As opposed to, and what's funny about that, what's that? Say that again?
I was saying we know everything now, and that doesn't leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and I was going to say, to add to that, what's funny about that is that we know everything, but even still, it's like, it's a false knowing, it's a false intimacy. So we have a Snickers bar or something like that. Like, you haven't actually satisfied the need for nutrition. You feel like you ate. And so what you're talking about, that thing where we see someone's social media all day long, it's like we haven't necessarily satisfied the need for connection, the need for a real intimate connection, but because we've been watching them all day, and like you said, we saw them in the thong picture, we know what they ate for breakfast, whatever, it's like the brain tricks itself into thinking, oh, I already ate, so I'm good.
Exactly.
It's true. So Lee on the thread says, dating in the 40s doesn't have to be done according to the myths of the past. Honesty is important, so there are real expectations, real perceptions, and real relationships. I totally agree with that, Lee. And when you say myths of the past, I still you have to clarify what you mean by myths of the past, because there are some things from the past I do think are valid when it comes to dating, and it might just be my age, but I think that if even younger people were willing to take on like certain things like chivalry, and like what Timothy, what you were talking about with like holding hands, that really old fashioned kind of like respect for each other first. Romance, like, mystery, like all of that stuff. I think a willingness to take that on in a very present way, because, we live in an age that doesn't necessarily foster being able to be present with each other in that way. I think that would also make a big difference too, as far as the kinds of intimate experiences that we have. Yeah. So Penny on the thread, she says, my mother was always up front. She was 18 with 2 children struggling. She didn't want us to end up like that. She said she knew sex would be wonderful with the right person, but you need to be safe. She never shamed sex. She only expressed, again, it would be wonderful with the right person. That's awesome, Penny. I see where you put good point.
I commented on that I commented on Penny's point because I love what her mother said. Now, I'm assuming, her mother probably came up when our mothers came up in the 50s and 60s. So you're right. When she says the right person, when I was talking about soulmate, one of the gentlemen that watched the broadcast, he made a comment to me and he said, I don't believe in soulmates. It sounds too mystical for me. And he made, other comments. I respected that and I responded to him. And And I clarified that no matter whether you say tomato or tomato, I'm talking about what Penny's talking about, the right person. Because when it comes to sex, you want fidelity. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants the same thing. Every culture, every ethnicity, we want fidelity, we want intimacy. Even the whole the theory of men, having an orgasm before a woman, and he said, "Hey, well, I got mine. I don't know what you're gonna do. I'm going to sleep." Yeah. Like she wants hers too. Yeah. And he wants his. So we all want the same thing. But the guy who doesn't understand intimacy is going to get his, so to speak, and go to sleep while you sit there frustrated watching TV because he never learned intimacy. That's why I keep preaching that, the value of it. And that's why Penny and her mother were talking about the right person. Because if we rush into something, you get linked up with someone that you guys see things differently. You want intimacy. They just want intercourse.
Yeah. It happens all the time. Penny says soulmates are real to me. Yeah. But here's the thing too, and I think you touched on this in one of your single circles, so I'd love for you to talk about it for my audience too. But the idea of the right person and the soulmate. So I'm a big believer, and this is what I coach, and this is what I teach my clients in workshops and things like that, is that a soulmate, a perfect person, that person that's right for you, is all about purpose alignment, right? So like, when we know our purpose, we know who we are, and when we meet someone who aligns with that, aligns with what's important to us, and that we can align with what's important to them. And I think you talked about it a little bit on the single circle at some point. Like, what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was exactly what I was talking about. Was whether you believe in soulmates or if you don't like that term, then don't spend too much time getting frustrated over that. Together and maximizing their fulfillment is really going to be based on purpose. An example would be, she is this outgoing, right now she's doing her podcast, but I see her doing radio and TV and all of, but if she meets a guy who says, "Hey babe, I have like this very prosperous meat packing company, and I like what you're doing, but I need you to shut that down because my vision is for you to come join me at the meat packing company and be my administrator," she'll never be happy.
No.
And so for someone to want you to give up your purpose, your gifts, your skill set, your calling, your lifelong vision, that is not your soulmate. And I think sometimes when we introduce it, goes back to introducing sex prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
If the sex is good, Candy, let's keep it 100. If the sex is good, people can get hypnotized.
That's true.
And you're not even thinking about, I don't care how many kids you have, can you come over tonight?
Yeah.
And I mean, the dude might have 6 kids by 5 different women, and he's not paying any child support, doesn't have a job, but she'll get on the phone and call her friends. "Girl, let me tell you what he did last night." Because we get hypnotized. That's why I think we need to hold off on that. Don't put the cart before the horse, because we really need to take time to evaluate the person. I mean, I want to get in the bed with you, but do I want to do life with you?
Yeah.
Do you even get me? Do you understand me, or do you just like my chest?
Yeah. No, I hear that. I totally hear that. And here's the thing I think happens a lot of times too, because I've been there. I had a little bit of a bad boy addiction for a while. That's what I call that. Because when it's about the sex being good, I think a lot of times, especially, I don't want to put this on women because I feel like men, have the capability to do this too. But we find that one aspect, like the sex being good, and then we try to force everything else to work.
Exactly.
That's
right.
Right? Like trying to make it happen, manipulate it.
Candy, and we make excuses for what the other person does wrong. Your friends step in and say like, "Man, I seen her at the mall with her." "Oh, you know what? That was her cousin, man." Like we try to clean stuff up for other people because we don't want to lose ultimately the eroticism of the relationship.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, hey, man, I'm teaching my daughters. I can't control what anybody else is doing, but what I can suggest to my daughters is, just like Steve Harvey wrote in the book, Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman. Mm-hmm. That's the cookie. That is special. That is valuable, and everybody loves cookies. But you don't need to give him the chocolate chip cookies on the front end because he will pretend to be everything you want him to be in order to get that.
Yeah.
You need to really have some time to evaluate him, interview him, get to know him, and you will cloud his judgment if the sex is introduced too quick. Because like I said, sex can be very good.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because you mentioned Steve Harvey, and I have to be full disclosure, I often make fun of Steve Harvey. And here's the thing about that book, because I read that book. Wait, and Penny says you should not have to give up what you love for love. You're absolutely right, Penny. That's along the lines with what you were saying. Yep. So here's my thing with Steve Harvey, because I always say I am not a tips and tricks kind of dating coach, right? So I always hate it when people have like the list of rules, the tips and tricks for what you should and should not do, because I feel like most of us are walking around unhealed. So like, we can do all the tips and tricks and we can use all the different methods, like he has the 90-day rule and stuff, and that will definitely get someone into our lives, right? Or we might be able to hold on to someone for a while. And I think that whole book is a manual for how to trap a man, right? So you can get him in your life, right? And I think you can get married to him even. But I also feel like, and I haven't read it in a little while, so it's not like I'm, knowing it verbatim. But I also feel like the problem that comes in is that what it does is it buoys and it supports women like myself who have, this independence and this penchant for having masculine energy and making things happen and knows how to control and manipulate if they want to. What it does, that book, is it gives all the tips and tricks and tools for continuing that manipulation and like getting somebody into your world. But it doesn't necessarily foster the intimacy that we're talking about. Because I feel like you can get somebody to marry you and still not have that intimacy if you're not coming from a place, right, of like authenticity. Yeah. So that goes back to what you were saying about the waiting. And I don't disagree about the waiting as far as sex is concerned. I do disagree about it being a certain amount of time. I know,
absolutely. Right? Let me just piggyback on that, because like when I mentioned Steve, it was just exclusively to make that point. Yeah. But there is no one person or one book where I say, hey, this is the holy grail, so to speak. But when it comes to the 90 days, I love Steve. So if Steve is listening, Steve, I love you. But I don't agree with the 90 days. I don't agree with 90. I don't agree with 3 years. Like I can't tell anyone the number of days. Like you said, they're using that's like deprivation to use it for manipulation. Yeah. So that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about two people both being patient. I don't think that anyone should be pushing the other one to do anything but get to know them. Yeah. And you cannot get to know someone. It's almost like going to a concert to talk to someone. That's stupid. Yeah. Like, I can't even hear you. What are you saying? Mary J. Blige is singing right now. I can't hear you. Yeah. Like, why would you go there to have a quiet conversation? Just like with sex. Sex is like the concert. It's loud. It's entertaining. It's wonderful. It's nutritious and delicious and all of that. Yeah. But it's just like that's not the environment to get to know someone. Gotcha. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, and and it's like what was it you said, a playmate as opposed to a soulmate. Like, this is not to say, anybody out there who's listening, if what you are knowingly doing is looking for and wanting to have a playmate, then by all means do your thing safely, right? But if what you want is a connected, intimate relationship and a connected, intimate sexual experience with someone you truly care about, then it's definitely worthwhile to find some alignment and some real connection before taking that road, right? And see, Candy, when I think about that, because we had a conversation about that a couple of days ago. For me personally, and I don't push this on anyone, to me that's about maturity. Because at this stage in my life, and this may sound funny because we're all sexual beings, but I'm not like aggressively looking for a playmate. Yeah. What I'm looking for is a soulmate. Yeah. Do we all have sexual urges? All of us do. We were born with that. God built us like that. Yeah. And again, I keep telling you what I believe. He says, hey, Adam and Eve, go be fruitful. Like, go have fun. I want you guys. I created this for you. It's a gift. I just think that at different stages of life and different stages of maturity is better. We have different goals and objectives. Like, I'm looking at finances differently right now. Totally. Because my oldest daughter is in high school. She's a senior. And next year, college. And I have 2 weddings to pay for. Yeah. And 2 cars and 2 proms, 2 of everything. So I'm not going to let's go to Vegas and have a drink and, buy the new Jordans type of guy.
Yeah.
My focus is different because of my priorities. So when it comes to sex, I don't want a playmate personally. That's just me. But the other person coming on the call says, "Hey, on Friday, I want to play."
Yeah.
Well, go to the playground. Be careful. Make sure you put your knee pads on and be careful because it's cold out there. But I'm looking at things differently because of what I want. And there's a lot of people out there that want different things.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. So I have a question for you about that. Before that, though, I want to say, so Lee on the thread has said, "I have told my daughter you don't have to try them all." I think he means try them all on for size to find the right one. That's true. I agree with that, Lee. And Penny says, reverse that. Make the connection first. Hold hands, open doors, sneak a smooch, cuddle at the drive-in, surprise someone with lunch at work, take long walks and talk. I love all that stuff, Penny. Then once that connection is made with the heart, the connection in bed can be explosive. I agree, Penny. I mean, I think that there's all that stuff is the romance, and it's also the opportunity to see if they really align with who you are as a person. And I totally agree. And I like what you just said, Timothy. You don't have to kiss all the frogs to find a prince. I see that Mary Beth and Sharice just... It's kind of a personal question. And you can tell me whether you want to divulge or not. Because here's the thing about what you just said about finding a playmate is not your highest priority. And I totally, we're on the same page with that. I even said last week...
Yeah.
Even though I'm doing this series of the Summer of Sexploration, this is for me a learning experience, a researching experience. I'm not active right now because I know that I'm in a space of just exploring my life out of a relationship, getting to know myself, all of that stuff. And I know for me, the people who normally listen, they will tell you that I'm a big advocate for masturbation. So my question to you as a man, when you say, right now the playmate is not your highest priority, what do you do? Do you do meditation? What is it that you're doing to kind of right? To keep you in a healthy space about it and to keep you feeling you still have a sex life?
Yeah, man. Great question.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about this freely on the Facebook Live single circle sessions when we talked about celibacy. I didn't want to just present information and not participate and let people know where I was from a transparent standpoint. But I haven't had intercourse in a year and a half, and is that easy? No, not at all, but it's a personal decision.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared, and thank you for doing that so that I don't feel like I'm out here on this ledge by myself. But you just shared that you are not active, and you said that was for personal reasons. Well, for me, I was married for 20 years, and I came out of a painful divorce, and I was very hurt. And, I have to recover. Could I be out here trying to actively take advantage of women? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people doing it. And like you mentioned earlier, if somebody goes into a relationship knowing, hey, I'm your playmate, you're my playmate, that's what it is, let's play.
Yeah.
Then there's an agreement. But for me, I'm at a stage in my life and I'm looking at my daughters and I want to be the type of man that they married.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me well, what's your legacy? And I said, my legacy will be being the type of man I want my daughters to marry. And I'm not trying to be deep or heavy in saying that. I'm saying I'm still recovering.
Yeah.
So for me to go into a relationship actively and say, hey, let's get together and let's just go have fun. Well, if I'm hurt, I've always used the analogy that, there are people who go to the hospital. If you get out and they put a Band-Aid on your arm, then you can participate in the marathon tomorrow. But if you get shot and they say, we took the bullet out, you have to wear a cast for the next 6 weeks, that person has to be a little bit more careful. They have to have more TLC. They have to go home, rest, and recover. Because of everything that I experienced, I'm still healing.
Yeah.
And that's why I said in the Facebook Live, some people are dating when they need to be healing. Yeah. So I want to be whole before I present myself to a woman. And, if you asked about, is it hard? It is difficult. I've been having sex since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. You asked about meditation. Yeah, a whole lot of that. A whole lot of praying, and really staying focused. You got to be careful the environments that you put yourself in.
Yeah.
Situations, some things are situational.
Yeah.
And I'm not some choir boy that just goes home and I just watch TV and eat my food and go to sleep. Man, I think about it all the time. It's a part of me. It's natural.
Yeah.
But I've made you'll know I'm not perfect, which I'm not.
Yeah.
But I've made a decision for the last year and a half that I didn't want to have sex with anyone. I wanted to recover so that I can come not just as a man, that may look well on the outside, but I want to be whole on the inside. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. I totally get that. And it's funny because to me, I always equate it with like working out. Like it's, you're as consistent as you can be. We're not always perfect. And it's not, there's nothing shameful in not doing it at your top level all the time. You're going to have some days that are like, really good days where you feel really healthy. You feel it in your body. And then you have some days where it's like you feel like you're questioning, or, like with working out, might have some extra muscle pain. So you're like, oh, why am I doing this? And I don't think it's like, I don't want to convey that it's like an endurance thing. I mean, at least not for me. And I don't know if it's a gender difference in how we experience celibacy and, or celibacy as a choice or celibacy as an accident. Because for some people, it's just that it's just not happening for them. But I think for me, it definitely, there are hard days, but what I miss more is my idea of what intimacy is. And as I get older,
absolutely,
right? Like that is more, I'm more interested in that right now. Yeah. Sometimes more interested in the physical part of it. And like you, I feel like I'm, not trying to do this perfect walk where I never, connect with somebody on that level. But, I feel like I'm okay with not, being naked every night, like with somebody.
But you know what? And I know we're, like you said, and I love the
healing
introduction of this call, that we're not experts and we're not pushing anything on anyone. We're having a conversation. I love this conversation because I think that people listening can relate. When it comes to sex, it's almost like if you fast, like some people intermittent fast, or they take a few days. I know, different religions do Ramadan. If you just fast in general, it kind of like fine tunes your other senses.
Yeah.
And like for me, not having sex, I'm not doing that. I'm not a religious person. People talk about religion. I'm a believer. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to religion, I'm not doing this for any, if I do it right, God will love me. He already loves me. Yeah. Like I'm not trying to earn anything from this. What I'm doing right now and making this this decisive dedication of my body and saying, you know what, I'm going to exercise restraint. I'm able to, like you said, you miss certain things. Andy, I miss hugs, man. I'll be at the grocery store and see somebody I haven't seen in a while. I'll be some old lady. And she'll say, I haven't seen you in a while. I say, come here, Miss Jenkins, give me a hug. How you doing?
Miss Jenkins.
And it sounds so silly, but man, the human touch is so necessary.
Yeah.
And that's why the prisons are full of people that never got the human touch, and they went out to like initiate it or to take something from someone.
Yeah.
I've been hugging my daughter since they were born, kissing them, talking to them. That's what I miss the most, is the intimacy. And you realize that like you can go without food for a couple of days and you're not going to die. You can go without sex for a temporary period and it's not going to kill you.
Yeah. And in all of what you're saying, even in the missing of the connection and all that, it goes back to what you were originally saying about the healing process. And that's the thing I think that's most important to convey. It's okay to not necessarily delay or control gratification, but it's okay to release the need for gratification to allow yourself to heal. And it's also okay to, hug Miss Jenkins at the grocery store because you feel a need for human connection. That, you know what I mean? Because that's part of our healing process. It's like being in it's like being in an exploratory place about where you're at. Like, I feel like I want to hug, and even if it's more of a motherly hug, or I feel like I want to, hold hands with someone or have a conversation with them or whatever. It's about allowing, I think, right? As opposed to like you were saying, not trying to be good enough for God, not trying to be good enough for, the lady in the next pew or whatever. It's about an allowing process.
Well, and I want to say this because I know we're running out of time, so I'll just be real quick with this. You brought up masturbation, and we kind of moved on to something else real quick, unintentionally. But for the viewers, our listeners, a very close friend of mine. I trust this guy. He's in a very, high position of influence, and I've known him for about 23 years or so. There's a great series that a guy named Michael Smith did. He actually did a Facebook Live. If you go to his page, I think it's called Mike and Connie. That's his wife. Or it might just be called Michael Smith. But Michael Smith, some people call him Mike. His wife's name is Connie. Put those together and you'll find his page. Okay. He did a great series on masturbation because, we started the conversation talking about religion and talking about how we were misinformed through religion. Yeah. No one in church talked about that.
Yeah.
Like, no one. Not only did they not talk about sex, that was taboo, but yet there were people all throughout the church having sex.
Right.
Our parents didn't tell us, and then no one told us. Nobody even talked to us about masturbation.
And they were masturbating. They were doing it, right?
Absolutely.
Even though they weren't talking about, just like sex.
Yeah, they weren't. And that's the thing is, I think we've been more secretive to our own demise.
Yes.
And I don't want that for my children. When they turned 12, I sat down with both of them with an encyclopedia, with pictures of the anatomy, with so many different resources to tell them these are potential consequences if you choose to act prematurely. These are the benefits to waiting. And I didn't want to have any holds barred. This is your vagina. This is not your coochie. You're going to learn that in the street. I want to teach you the correct vernacular so that your body is not dirty. And these desires that you have are not bad.
Yeah, and it's all good. There's no shame. There's no shame in your parts.
No shame. No shame zone.
So wait, what does Penny say? Being single at 47, what I miss the most? Coming home to someone who cares how your day was, asks how your day was,
Lord,
and yes, a hug. Yes, Penny.
Come on, Penny. I don't know.
She also says about masturbation.
Speak on it.
Right?
And everybody's not talking about it. That's the sad thing about it.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing. And that's another takeaway for everybody. It's like let's talk about it. Let's have these conversations. And Tim, you're right. We're so out of time. I can't believe it's already 8:54. We still have a little more business to do. Is there anything that you want to tell the people or leave them with, or you have them find you somewhere, or what do you want them to know?
Yeah, absolutely. When you introduced me, you mistakenly said Hidden Lights for the television show. It's called Hidden Heights.
Did I really?
PBS.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry
that's why I
about
didn't
that.
say anything, because I was like, I'll fix it later.
Yeah.
It's called Hidden Heights. It's on PBS every night at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. A great show for the family where me and my co-host, Iris Hill, take a different fourth grader and their family up into the mountains to disconnect from technology and to really connect with the great outdoors. Other than that, please connect with me on YouTube and so that you guys can follow the films that I'm working on. You can see new trailers that are out right now. The YouTube channel is Timothy Jones. And if you type in Timothy T. Jones, because that's a very common name, Timothy Jones, then thank you, Candace. Oh, Candace typed it in.
Put it in.
Then you will be able to find me on YouTube there. Instagram, Timothy T. Jones, but really YouTube. If I had to give you one platform to follow, make sure you stay connected to me there so you can stay connected to my projects. And thank you, Candy, for having me. I really appreciate you. I sure hope you invite me back.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to be a regular guest, especially for our next series, too, because that's going to be like relationship beginnings and all of that stuff. I feel like when we talk about things, we put our word on them, then that's how we manifest them. So you're staying in this conversation, honey. So, right, here's the other thing. Everybody, you like Hidden Hikes. I definitely want you guys to tune in on that on Tuesdays. I definitely want you to find Timothy on YouTube. We'll put it also in the comments, all the things that you just said too. If you want to type in your YouTube channel, just to make sure that people have it, or I'll even link it later so that people can definitely find you. And then for me, anybody out there, I have a 45-day intensive one-on-one coaching program that helps single women over 35 find their purpose and attract a soulmate to support them in fulfilling it, that they can also support in fulfilling their own. It's 6 weeks of intense mind, body, and spirit practice that causes major shifts. So if you want to talk to me about the secret art of seductive singlehood, it's called, I would love to help you transform your love life and transform your life for the future. So, get at me, call me. You can private message me here on the Facebook. And as always, here are the 3 ways that you can possibly make your love and life sweeter this week. If you want to try them on, try them out. You can share a discussion about intimacy with your current partner, or if you don't have a partner, with a friend, and just talk about like what their distinction is, what they think is the difference between intimacy and intercourse. Because when we start these conversations, it's funny, the universe starts to provide the information. Second thing is identify what context or beliefs you may have been taught and how affecting your love life, your sex life right now. You don't have to make it wrong. You don't have to, like Timothy and I just had a whole discussion about how we were raised, and, we're at a place where we get it, that's what, we were taught, what they knew. And that also gives us access to learning what doesn't and what doesn't work without having to judge it or shame it. It just was what it was. And now we have room for possibility, right, Timothy?
Absolutely.
Right. And then the third one is consider how your sex life could serve your higher good. So, we're all about health. We're all about releasing shame. We're all about, being in a space of healing, and how, for me right now, not having sex and just using this time of healing and getting in touch with what I like and, what works for me and what's purposeful for me, that I incorporate with, feeling good and, just self-care and all of that stuff. I think it's good to explore what's possible as far as that's concerned, right? All right, Timothy, thank you so much. We have 1 minute left for the Armed Radio Global people. Facebook Live, I go a little bit longer. Timothy, thank you again for coming on the show. You're definitely coming back on very soon. Hopefully.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully in the fall. We're definitely going to have to work that out. If you have any questions or you want even any more information about Timothy, you can find him on Facebook, or you can email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. And for Armed Radio Global people, until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. Right? All right, Armed Radio Global people, I love you so much. My Facebook Live people, I love you. I see Jonathan, you just joined. You're going to have to watch the